All right, so we're diving into a Colombian court case.
Okay.
That's been making some waves, I guess you could say, about the acquittal of Santiago Uribe Vélez.
Yes.
Brother of the former president, Álvaro Uribe Vélez.
Right.
And you want to know if justice was really served here?
That's the big question.
Yeah, and I got to say, after even just reading through it once, I'm kind of wondering the same thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a case that raises a lot of questions.
It does.
What's really striking right off the bat is how it seems like a straightforward legal battle.
Right.
But it very quickly gets into these questions about power, influence, and whether justice can really be blind when you've got these political heavyweights involved. Yeah,
and the article definitely doesn't hold back in its critique of the judge, Jaime Herrera Niño.
No, it doesn't.
He took almost 4 years to reach a verdict. Ultimately acquitted Uribe, but the article's arguing that the ruling itself is just a mess.
Yeah.
And potentially biased towards the defense.
I mean, one of the things they point out is the judge's, how do I put this? His very enthusiastic praise for the defense attorney, Jaime Granados.
Okay.
He uses terms like magistral and diaphana, masterful and transparent, which is pretty flowery language for a legal document.
Yeah, it definitely reads more like he's writing him a recommendation than an impartial judgment.
Exactly.
And the article contrasts that with how he treated the evidence from the prosecution, which he seemed very quick to dismiss.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty big problem, right?
It's definitely a red flag. I mean, it raises questions about the judge's impartiality.
Right.
Which is, you know, the whole foundation of a fair trial.
Yeah.
And speaking of questionable impartiality, let's talk about that recording that was excluded.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
So we've got this recording made by former police major Juan Carlos Menezes of a conversation he had with retired Colonel Pedro Manuel Benavides. And both of these guys were police commanders during the time that the Los Doce Apostoles, that's the paramilitary group that Santiago Uribe was accused of forming, were active.
So they were right in the thick of it.
Exactly.
And in this recording, you know, it's not just that they admit to being involved with this group.
Right.
They actually implicate Santiago Uribe directly.
Wow.
They claim that he promised them protection if they ever got in trouble with the law.
So if this recording had been allowed as evidence, it seems like that would have been really bad for Uribe's case.
It would have been pretty damning.
Yeah.
But the judge decided to exclude it. He called it unconstitutional.
Really?
Said it violated Benavides' right to privacy because it was made without his consent.
That doesn't sound quite right to me. I mean, don't people confess to crimes on tape all the time?
That's a good point. And the article argues that the judge is misapplying the law here. You see, there's this concept called self-recording, which basically means if one person involved in a conversation is recording it, it's usually admissible even if the other person doesn't know.
Oh, so by excluding this recording, it's like the judge just swept some really important evidence under the rug.
That's essentially what the article is saying.
Wow.
And this isn't the only decision that seems inconsistent, shall we say.
So there's more.
Oh, yes. So get this. The judge acquits Uribe based on the testimony of several witnesses.
Okay.
Right? But then he turns around and orders an investigation into those same witnesses for perjury.
Wait, hold on. He acquitted Uribe based on what they said, but then he's investigating whether they lied under oath?
Yep.
I'm not a lawyer or anything, but that seems
contradictory.
Yeah, a little bit.
It is very strange, and one of the witnesses he ordered investigated was Colonel Benavides, the guy from the recording. And his testimony in court directly contradicted what he admitted to on that tape.
So the judge is acknowledging that there might be inconsistencies or even lies, but he still acquits Uribe.
Yeah, it doesn't really add up, does it?
No, it feels like there's a piece missing here.
Well, that missing piece might be found in the case of Zeus.
Zeus, okay, now this is getting intriguing.
Yeah, Zeus was the alias of this guy, Juan Carlos Rodriguez Agudelo, a confessed criminal involved in drug trafficking and paramilitary activities.
So a real bad guy.
Pretty much, he testified in favor of Uribe, but then later admitted that he had lied under oath.
So another instance of potentially false testimony.
Exactly. It's like nobody in this case is telling the whole truth.
Right.
What's really strange is that Zeus confessed that he had lied at the behest of his boss.
Okay.
This drug trafficker named Diego Leon Montoya, Acaya Don Diego, and a lawyer named Diego Catena.
And the judge ordered an investigation into Zeus.
He did.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, right?
You'd think so, except for one small detail.
What's that?
Zeus was killed by police before the judge even issued his ruling.
He ordered an investigation into a dead man. This is getting weirder and weirder.
It is pretty bizarre. It makes you question what the judge was really after.
Yeah, was he trying to find the truth or just make it look like he was doing something?
It's hard to say, but this whole thing with Zeus definitely adds to the suspicion that something's not right here.
Okay, let's try to recap here.
Okay.
We've got a judge who's praising the defense attorney like he's his best friend.
Right.
We've got key evidence being excluded because of what seems like a very questionable interpretation of the law. We've got perjury investigations launched into witnesses whose testimonies were used to acquit Uribe in the first place.
Uh-huh.
And then we have this whole thing with Zeus and the judge trying to investigate a dead man.
Yeah.
This case is just a tangled mess of inconsistencies.
It really is, and we've only just scratched the surface.
So where do we go from here? I mean, this is clearly about more than just a single court case, right?
Definitely. This whole thing with its twists and turns, it raises these bigger questions about the Colombian justice system.
Like what?
Like, are some people, especially those with powerful connections, getting preferential treatment? And what does that mean for the pursuit of justice in a country that's dealing with a really complex history of violence and impunity?
On that note, we'll leave you to ponder these questions and continue the conversation. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Vándalos,